Told you it's an 8-hour trip that the president is making, and he is banging it out on Truth Social. Iran will never rebuild their nuclear facilities, is the latest of the messages that he has put out, of course, in the frustration that he has right now with Israel. Still waiting to hear, if anything, from them. In the meantime, our plan was to have quite the conversation about Australian politics, because I've got something special for you, which is Linda Scott and James Ashby in the man cave tonight. But alas, the world is always getting in the way of things. Lovely to see you both.
Good to see you, mate.
So, to see the president drop an F-bomb live on TV, and also he's pretty clear here, which is... regardless of what happened a week ago, regardless of what happened 2 days ago, he says, regardless of what has happened in Israel tonight, Israel, hold off, don't respond.
Look, it's actual bombs and an F-bomb from the US president in 1 week, so it's a pretty extraordinary time. And it's interesting because we have seen so many foreign affairs, and diplomacy officials talking for so long about how the second wave of a Trump administration would create, real regime change for the world. And we are now seeing that. I think it's a very dangerous environment. We've got, Qantas planes turning back over these airspaces. And I know the Australian government's working very hard to keep a watch on everything, but there's not just, the US, Israel and Iran here. We've got a whole lot of countries looking on very closely, Pakistan, a range of others. So a very dangerous, volatile time.
And of course, getting close to 5,000 people who are in this region who want to get back. They obviously can't because of those closed airports at the moment. But again, James, the thing that I find fascinating, and again, we can do two things at once, which is to look at the whole situation as well as the incremental things that are happening. Trump doesn't hide what he is thinking. He doesn't. He's essentially, and the joy of the technology means that he's not waiting for the back channel. He's just blasting it straight out, and the world can all find out together in real time what he's thinking.
Well, I like the fact that Trump is living up to what he said. He does not want war. And to be able to turn around and just moments ago say that Israel have turned back its jets is a good sign, because that is not what the world wants. We've made it very clear. I think what's happened in the last week has been necessary. We've been very, very, very confident that this will end, and it will end soon. It may not have ended as quickly as what Trump had wanted, but it can't go on for long.
As I say, got lots of things to get to tonight. Nigel Farage will join us very shortly from the United Kingdom. So let's try to bounce through a couple of local issues here, including one that literally affects you, James, which is the staffing levels that the re-elected government has now decided to impose upon anyone whom is not one of their political friends. Now, what are we saying here? We're saying that there has previously been about 21% of the total amount of government staffing is given to opposition parties. Now, whether the assumption is here because there are so few members of the opposition, therefore fewer staff, but remember, this is an alternative government, right? We have the absurdity of places like Queensland, where David Crucifulli, I remember, told me that the entire staff of the opposition was 20 people. This is versus the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that are working in all different parts of the machine. And that's bad for democracy, right? Regardless of whether it's Team Red or Team Blue, you want the people who are your political opponents to have professional staff around them. But it seems there might be something rather specific about the staff behaviours towards One Nation.
Well, what I found most disturbing, the Prime Minister clearly back-channeled media before he gave any decency to go and have those discussions with the senators or the party leaders that were about to lose staff. I had staff wake up this morning texting saying, am I losing my job? We hadn't even received the letter. Now, that's despicable. And to think that this Prime Minister has cherry-picked his friends and then flicked his enemies, that's precisely what he's done. He has said, we're halving One Nation staff numbers. The personal staff will be halved. He said, Ralph Babet has lost staff today. He has had his personal staff halved. But the likes of Tammy Tyrrell, David Pocock, Jackie Lambie, they haven't.
Yeah.
Now, one in, all in, or you just can't cherry pick your friends. That's the problem.
But also remember, I mean, literally, One Nation doubled its representation in the Senate, but it will have the same amount of staff as when they had half of what they got at the election. Let's also talk here about New South Wales and Queensland budgets, because again, I'm aware that at any second we could be off to what the President is tweeting. Today, New South Wales, Linda, what did you think of the budget that was handed down by the Labor government in New South Wales?
Well, look, I've just come from being with Premier Chris Minns and Daniel Mookie. Chris Minns did want me to say hello to you and
G'day, Premier.
hello Sky News audience from Premier Chris Minns. He's got friends everywhere.
Everywhere, mate. It may surprise. Across the nation.
But look, I think the two hallmark things in the New South Wales budget today, the $1 billion investment in housing through supporting to help developers loan for properties to get them to access finance. That is going to fast track homes out of the ground and hopefully create more accessible, affordable homes for New South Wales. A big priority. And the other big landmark is the $1.2 billion investment in foster caring and child protection. We know in so many parts of Australia, vulnerable children do better when they have great foster care, when they have better support and wraparound services. And that, $1.2 billion, I think, is a really landmark Labor decision. And I'm really personally proud of that. I think it's an extraordinary thing.
Queensland also had its budget today. James?
Well, not overly impressed in the fact that they haven't done something about the royalties on coal. We know, well, me especially, living in central Queensland, we're seeing coal mines going backwards. The cost of production outweighs what they're getting on the spot market at the present moment, and the only winners are the state government. Meanwhile, we've got more and more mines considering going into care and maintenance, which means the loss of thousands of jobs, particularly in the central Queensland region. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they don't realise we've got fly in, fly out miners from city regions as well as our regional areas. And so the impact that that's having is far, far greater than what most people recognise. When it comes to the housing investment that Queensland's looking at, I'm still not sold yet. I'm not confident that a state government should be allowing people to buy $1 million home with a 2% deposit and the state government goes in as an equity partner with 30%. It just doesn't make sense to me. And effectively, you can buy $1 million property with a $20,000 deposit. It just rubs me a bit the wrong way as a taxpayer, and I just don't know. If you don't have enough skin in the game, are you going to look after that place the way you would if you really save that 10%, 15%?
Last one here is about the social media changes that are going to happen around age limits to access things like X and Meta and all of those things. The e-safety commissioner, the e-computer Karen, says that YouTube should be part of this, where basically, because of course we know that there's all sorts of stuff on YouTube, right? From good, funny, satirical, political cartoons on Pauline Hanson's Please Explain to fail videos, but there's also a lot of rougher stuff out there. The company, though, which of course is Google, Linda, would say, well, there's already a platform called YouTube Kids. That's the one that they should be focused on. There's not like kids version of X, so they've already demarcated, and it's up to the parent what they download. What do you think?
Look, I think this social media reform by the Labor government is world-leading reforms, and it's reasonable that they take some time to figure out what is going to be in and what is going to be out. And I think it's important to look hard at that. I don't think there's many parents in Australia, and I speak as a parent of two lovely teenage boys, who are not worried about this though. And I think that no platform can guarantee a child is not going to see something that's unsafe. They just can't. Let's just call that out. And yet they do use many of these platforms for learning. So, look, I don't have a definitive view. I think it's good for the government to look at it, but these world-leading reforms are important to do.
All right, I want to be respectful to Nigel in a moment, so give me the 30-second version. James?
Look, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for YouTube. At the end of the day, like my business ran off me and my staff learning off YouTube, and kids are the same way. I wouldn't deprive a child from learning how to use the Adobe package on YouTube, and so I'm not for it. Parents need to take more responsibility.
James, free tape.
A free tape. All right. See, if they didn't get something in, it wouldn't be a normal show.